As many opinions say aye. The contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order. Order. We now come on to the next debate, and I call Munira Wilson to move the motion.
Thank you, Sir Christopher. It's an honour to serve under your chairmanship. I beg to move that this House has considered children's cancer care in the South East. In 2020, Jackson's parents received some of the worst news you possibly can as a parent. Jackson had been diagnosed with leukemia at just 2 years old. He soon began treatment at St George's Hospital in Tooting, and after 3 years, he finally rang the bell that signified the end of his treatment in April 2023. It was a very difficult experience for Jackson. However, his family are extremely grateful for the treatment they received at St George's Hospital. Reflecting upon the experience, Jackson's mum, Samantha, said, "Thank you, St George's, for being such a great hospital, and to everyone who works there. You have made our journey so much easier to deal with because you're the best team." Sir Christopher, tomorrow, a decision will be made by NHS England about where to place a new children's cancer centre which will serve South West London and surrounding areas such as Surrey, Sussex, Medway and Kent. NHS England will decide between two proposals, one submitted by St George's Hospital and the other by the Evelina Hospital in Lambeth. After listening to staff, patients and others affected, I'm here to make the case with colleagues from all sides of the House that children's cancer care must remain with St George's.
Could the Honourable Member give way on that point?
Yes, of course.
I thank the Honourable Member for making a powerful speech and referencing Jackson there. Does she agree with me that the independence of NHS England is important and that any decision they make tomorrow has to be based on clinical knowledge of the medical experts, and that this decision must be free from any political interference, and that the world-class facilities at Evelina, which she's seen firsthand, should be considered with the other one? And does she agree that by making sure this is independence, we don't undermine the public reputation and put undue pressure on NHS England?
I thank the Honourable Lady for her intervention. What I would say to her is that it's not about political interference, it's about making sure that there's been a fair, balanced and transparent process. And actually, I'm going to talk about process in a moment. And that is the concern. And she talks about clinical input. Actually, with the consultation that has been run, albeit in a very flawed way, there were 2,500 responses, and some of those were from clinical experts, a lot of those were from patients and their parents. And there is very strong evidence base there that actually St George's is best place and the Evelina has been predetermined. I have nothing against the Evelina, and in fact, I was just about to come on to sing my praises for the Evelina through personal experience. So to make myself clear, Sir Christopher, the Evelina is a brilliant hospital that does incredibly important work treating children. And my own daughter, who is 9, is currently undergoing treatment at the Evelina and has received absolutely outstanding care. So this is not about pitting hospital against hospital. It's about looking at the process and the evidence before us. And as the Honourable Member for Vauxhall has alluded to, I'd like to personally thank the Medical Director at the Evelina, who showed me around their excellent facilities on Monday of this week. However, as I've alluded to, the overwhelming evidence demonstrates that in this particular case, for this highly specialist cancer service, St George's is best placed to deliver. Now, before I go on to that evidence, I wanted to raise serious questions about the decision-making process to date. Are we about to adjourn for a vote?
Order. There's a division in the House. I don't know whether there's just going to be one division, but if there is only one division, we will come back in 15 minutes. If there are two divisions, we will come back in 25 minutes. Order, order. Order, order. Munira Wilson.
Thank you, Sir Christopher. So to pick up where we left off, before we look at some of the evidence and the arguments for keeping this precious service at St George's, I wanted to raise the serious questions that have been highlighted around the decision-making process that have brought us to this point. Now, NHS England had first publicly expressed their preference for the Evelina's proposal at the start of last year, long before they'd even launched their public consultation. Now, this has raised concerns that NHS England has not created a process in which the views of patients, clinicians, and patients' families have been seriously listened to and taken into account. Very happy to give way.
She's quite right. Can I congratulate her on this debate? I have spoken to the department and NHS England about the process because there has been real concerns about the scoring and whether that has been based on evidence or preference. And secondly, there's real concern, isn't there, that clinical outcomes are not being given quite the highest priority they should be, and that's key if we're looking at the cancer survival rates for young children.
Yeah. Absolutely. So there's a transparency point, there's the fact that it's been predetermined, and the point about outcomes, which I'm going to touch on briefly in my speech. In a consultation response submitted by Healthwatch Richmond and Healthwatch Merton, the groups concluded that the consultation design was insufficient because, and I quote, it fails the legal test for consultation and appears to have no prospect of altering the decision to award the new service to the Evelina. I would, therefore, be very keen to know from the Minister, when she responds, what assessment her department has made of the way that NHS England have carried out this process. And further, can she give an absolute assurance to members here that when a decision is made tomorrow, that it will have been made fairly? Now, regardless of the way that it was carried out, the consultation did receive over 2,500 responses from affected groups such as patients, their family, clinicians and professional organisations. And these voices must be heard, and I will seek to ensure that is the case here today. One of the most important themes raised was specialist knowledge and experience of children's cancer care. It is undeniable that St George's has invaluable experience to offer, as it has already been treating child cancer patients in partnership with the Royal Marsden. It has done so, Sir Christopher, for over a quarter of a century. Not only is this experience highly valued by patients and their families, it has also resulted in excellent outcomes, as the Honourable Member for Wimbledon has already said. According to national data collected from intensive care units, St George's Children's Cancer Intensive Care outcomes are the best in the UK of a large unit. All this institutional knowledge, specialist expertise and professional networks that have been built over decades risk being lost if cancer care were to move away. Another key theme that was repeatedly mentioned across responses was that the centre should be conveniently located. Now, travelling with a vulnerable and immunosuppressed child is both stressful and indeed very risky via public transport. Therefore, patients and family have repeatedly stressed that a new centre must be easily accessible by car. Now, anyone who has lived or worked in central London knows how difficult and unpredictable driving in and out of central London can be. However, located in Tooting, St George's is much easier and has strong road links to parts of the southeast, which is particularly appreciated by those travelling from afar. Finally, responses highlighted the importance of having most specialisms on a single site. One service that is particularly vital to child cancer patients is neurosurgery, which is required by 1 in 4 of them. Currently, out of the 2 options, only St George's offers neurosurgery. According to the Children's Cancer and Leukemia Group, the fact that the Evelina does not currently provide cancer surgery is not an issue that can be resolved quickly. And relocating surgery services comes with associated risks to both patients and staff. And in their consultation response, the British Association of Paediatric Surgeons note that in previous cases where this has happened, a lack of support and structure has resulted in staff leaving the relocated unit. Furthermore, there are concerns shared by clinicians that if children's cancer care were to move from St George's, other services could be negatively disrupted. This may create unforeseen consequences for the many areas served by St George's. By contrast, placing the new centre at St George's would ensure that NHS services are not overly centralised, but rather evenly distributed across the region. I would like to ask the Minister what assessment the Government has made of this crucial clinical evidence and the associated potential risks both to the Cancer Service and other children's services. Sir Christopher, the decision is such an important one because at the heart of it are children with cancer, a group who have dealt with the most challenging and frightening of circumstances so early on in their lives. In many cases, these children can go on to lead full lives. One such example is teenager Zoe, who was treated by St George's when she was just 4. She has since recovered and now has dreams of becoming a children's nurse. She says, "I'm so grateful to the paediatric staff at St George's Hospital for looking after me, for always being there for me throughout my life, and to the nurses who've told me to follow my dreams and never give up." The experience, the expertise and the convenience that St George's can offer is extremely valued by these patients and those who care for them. That has to be reflected in the final decision that's made tomorrow. And that's why it's so crucial that no doubt is cast over whether the decision that is being made is being done so fairly and transparently. Yet, as I have set out, the process and the way it's been handled by NHS England means that it's very difficult to make that judgment at this point. Last week, I wrote, together with my Right Honourable friend, the member for Kingston and Surbiton, and my Honourable friend, the member for Richmond Park, we wrote to the Secretary of State requesting that she uses her formal powers to call in this decision should NHS England press ahead tomorrow with awarding the Children's Cancer Service to the Evelina. A group of cross-party council leaders from across South West London and Surrey have also done the same. So I conclude by urging the Minister in the strongest possible terms if she will join that call and support us in saying that this must be called in tomorrow if the Evelina is chosen, because of the serious process and clinical arguments that I've laid out today. Thank you.
The question is that this House has considered children's cancer care in the South East. This debate will have to finish in terms of backbench speeches at 5:38. Elliot Cohen.
Thank you, Sir Christopher. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and can I congratulate the Honourable Member for Twickenham for securing it, not only as a constituency MP, but as chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Cancer. I am particularly pleased to take part in today's debate and absolutely agree with what's been said so far. And similarly, along with colleagues from Twickenham, Richmond Park and Kingston, myself and the member for Sutton and Cheam have also written to the Secretary of State requesting a call-in of this decision. I don't want to repeat much of what has already been said, as there are many colleagues who do want to get in, but I do want to emphasise just a few points, if I may. Particularly the fact that paediatric cancer is incredibly rare and a highly specialised service that the NHS provides. Now, I understand the NHS is concerned about co-locating the deliverables of the care on one site, but I think, as has already been pointed out, and as St George's keep on saying, they are standing ready to be able to do that. They are investing a lot on the St George's campus. Not just them, but the University of London is also investing on the St George's campus. They stand ready to provide what parents are asking for and have 25 years of specialist experience alongside the Royal Marsden to do so. So I think it would be a mistake to take the decision to move it to the Evelina. And like the member for Twickenham, I am confident that the Evelina is a fantastic hospital with amazing staff that does amazing work. But this is about clinical deliverables, and I will be happily give way to my honourable friend.
Well, I'm grateful for allowing me that intervention, and he's right, the Evelina is a great hospital. But the other point about St George's, surely, not only the specialism in paediatric cancer, is the wider specialism in neonatal services and paediatric services, and the concern that those would be lost if the co-location was based at the Evelina.
My honourable friend is absolutely right, of course, and that is a key concern, and I think that is precisely what here debating and trying to avoid. I think it is also worth stating that St George's doesn't just have 25 years of experience. The data really does speak for itself. They have been rated outstanding by the CQC for delivering cancer services for children. And their proposal is to consolidate the primary treatment centre onto the St George's site in a new state-of-the-art children's cancer wing, delivering the outstanding facilities to match the outstanding care they already provide. And the services that matter most for children with cancer are already available at St George's. Some 80% of children with cancer, St George's campus can already provide, or is poised to provide, key treatments that the Evelina will have to take time to develop. Now, St George's can deliver what parents say they want, and above all, that is the expertise and the experience that they currently have. It is reliant on this experience with incredibly rare expertise. In fact, something like only 20 surgeons in paediatric oncology are registered in the UK that have this uncommon skill and practice, and 3 of them are at St George's already. Now, parents have consistently said that they would prefer the Children's Cancer Centre to also be outside the centre of the city with better parking provision, and that is something that St George's, again, is already able to provide. And I think we don't need to wax lyrical about how awful central London traffic is. We say that every day getting in to work anyway. So consolidating the children's cancer services at St George's will be easier and less costly for the NHS to deliver. A large part of the service is already there, and the existing non-clinical space can, at relative speed, be transformed into a new state-of-the-art cancer centre. But beyond the financial impact of the individual institution that we are talking about, there will be wider costs to the NHS as a whole if it is relocated. St George's has estimated these costs to be at circa 2.5 million in the first year alone if the service is moved. And it will have an impact, or could have an impact, on other children's services and indeed wider services that are at St George's at the moment. Children's cancer is distressing, but it is also, from a clinical perspective, not neat or not standalone and requires incredible skill. And the expert staff supporting these children could end up leaving St George's Hospital and weaken the multidisciplinary teams that they have there already. And now, as I say, with the increasing investment on the campus, with the City University of London and St George's University of London having agreed to merge and develop ambitious plans on the campus, the opportunities are stronger still, not to mention the expansion of the Institute for Cancer Research in the London Borough of Sutton, which we are so excited to see, and the development of a new acute facility. We have the ability to turn South West London into a hub, a world-leading hub for cancer services, not beating the United States in many sense. This is incredible news. We need to be grasping this opportunity, so taking this away would be a huge mistake. So given all of this, I fail to see a compelling reason why the Evelina could provide better care for children in my constituency of Carshalton and Wallington and further afield. So as such, I would like to request that the Secretary of State does consider using her call-in powers to review this decision on a reconfiguration, if that is the decision that is taken tomorrow.
James Vaughan McDowell.
Thank you very much, Sir Christopher. I don't want to take up too much time. I know there's lots of people who want to say things in this debate, but I would just like to speak on behalf of some of the parents and children who've been involved in the consultation. They have made it quite clear that they want the cancer services to remain at St George's Hospital, as you would imagine, for quite practical reasons, and particularly transport and parking. It is St George's who offer a dedicated parking spaces and a drop-off zone directly outside the entrance of the proposed new state-of-the-art Children's Cancer Centre. Just look at Angela's case to see how critical that is. She's a children's nurse at St George's who has cared for hundreds of kids during her decades-long career. But her worst fears were realised when her own teenage daughter was diagnosed with cancer. She has been staunchly opposed plans to move the services. She said, "I can't imagine travelling to central London for cancer care with a vulnerable child is in anyone's interest. Luckily, we were able to drive to St George's when Meg was here, and for our family it was invaluable. We were able to keep some semblance of normality. But it's not just about Megan and Angela. Philip has a 10-year-old son, Daniel, who has just finished cancer treatment and spent countless days and nights at St George's. Philip said, "You can't use public transport when your child is immunosuppressed, and I can't imagine having to drive into central London every time Daniel needed urgent care." Little Jackson Hall was diagnosed with leukemia in February 2020 after a rash appeared on his skin that wouldn't go away, and was treated by an amazing team at St George's. His dad, Sean, said, if we had to transfer to Evelina, it would be added stress and worry and takes away what we can give to Jackson. When we come here, there's a network and protocols in place, and it takes the weight of us knowing that we have been sent here. If he has a temperature, the protocol is to get Jackson to St George's or the Marsden within an hour, so being forced to go further into central London means there'll be traffic and nowhere to park, and we might not make it within the hour. Sean summed up my thoughts when he said, "Why change something that's not broken?" The services are excellent. They provide a service more cheaply than the proposed changes suggest. Leave things alone. Let children's cancer care stay at St George's.
Sir Paul Beresford.
Thank you, Mr. Christopher. I congratulate the Honourable Lady for obtaining this debate. It's a little interesting because it's a debate before we've actually got the report. So we can't really add to the report and we can't really comment on the report because we haven't got the report. But one thing we'll all agree on is there's no doubt that a centre is required. So, like everybody here, I'm waiting for this report with considerable interest. I listened to the lady's story of Jackson, and it's always a delight to hear these stories. Cancer treated by St George's, with a delightful story to follow it, but equally, every hospital that I know that is treating cancer and children's cancer has similar stories, and St George's has more than just the few that she's given. I'm a huge supporter of St George's Hospital. As Sir Christopher will know, I spent a considerable number of years on St George's Health Board. This was when St George's had been rationalised. It's been reorganised and rebuilt. Now, St George's is a world class in so many areas, but not all, but in so many areas, right across the spectrum of medical treatment. The rebuilding that has taken place related to St George's has centred on making the buildings as welcome as feasible for adults and children, for medical and surgical care. I know it well. It's a delightful, functioning National Health Hospital, giving much to our community, and now, if the Honourable Lady has her way, to the southeast. But access is by tube, and then you walk, or you get a tube and a bus, or you go by car and hope for a park. Now, honourable members have said that parks are easily available. I can remember sitting for ages in the park at St George's, especially in the morning, not able to get a park, and some of the consultants I know at St George's drive in hours early just to get a park for their car in the consultant's car park. So parking is not as simple as has been said. Public transport from many areas of the southeast would be a nightmare. Those coming from the coast would have difficulty. They wouldn't even know where Tooting is, let alone St George's and Tooting. It's a fact. I'm sorry with the Honourable Lady from Tooting. I will especially write to people who say they don't know where Tooting is and explain and give them a picture of the Honourable Lady. I've also got to know the Evelina Hospital. It is an absolutely amazing place. It's not designed and built for adults. It's designed and built for children. And it strikes you when you walk in the front door. It's a children's hospital. And you see immediately from those front doors, go into a tall, spacious entrance, running right up, floor after floor after floor, or, what's even better, and I hope that when she visited, the Honourable Lady actually went up and looked down onto it. It is a magnificent building, and they have left one whole floor completely waiting for building in case the report comes forward and says that they are the choice for the cancer centre. Evelina is sitting next to St Thomas's Hospital. It has access to St Thomas's Hospital. There are specialist cares along the lines that people have been talking about from St Thomas's Hospital, if required. The travel in is correct. We have to come into central London. From driving in is a problem, but as I understand it, the hospital is prepared to provide specific parking, and in fact the Honourable Lady from Tooting mentioned specific parking at St George's, so they're doing the same thing. For special cases, they will provide special cars for the individual patients. Now, this report we'll await. We put it together and we'll see what the experts say. I'm the nearest to an expert here, which is a great big smile, but I have treated children, and treating children, especially the East End children, is an art. And that's why I would like us to look very strongly, if Evelina comes through as the choice hospital, it would be best for kids. And kids are what we're looking at now, with cancer and accumulated diseases, conditions that go with it. And I'm sorry to disagree with just about everybody here at the moment, but Evelina, as far as I'm concerned, is the choice, and I await the report.
Hey, Debbie.
Thank you, Sir Christopher, and can I congratulate my honourable friend, the member for Twickenham, for securing this debate. I should declare an interest of sorts, Sir Christopher, because my disabled son John has been treated at both these hospitals. A few years ago, he had a very successful operation at St George's, and for most of the last 2 years, he's been attending a weekly clinic at Evelina. So my wife and I are grateful to both hospitals. They're both excellent hospitals, and we regard them very highly. So the fact that I strongly believe that NHS England should choose St George's is no reflection on Evelina, not in the slightest. I've approached this issue from the start by looking at the facts, talking to clinical experts, listening to both sides, and looking at the risks of each of the options, because that's what you really look at when you're taking big decisions, which is the least risky option to make sure we have the quality services. And in looking at the facts and the evidence, Sir Christopher, and talking to clinical experts, they suggest to me that St George's is easily the less risky option for locating these specialist children's cancer services. For my constituents and for people across South London, Surrey, Sussex and beyond. And I want to take everyone through some individual cancers and how these risks lay for the individual cancers. I want to start with neurosurgery. 25% of children with cancer have a brain or spinal tumour, and many of those will need neurosurgery. St George's currently delivers that, the Evelina does not. And the Children's Care and Leukemia Group, which is the UK's professional association for those involved in the treatment of children with cancers, said in response to the public consultation that if Evelina was the option chosen, quotes, this would be the only principal treatment centre in the UK where neurosurgery is not carried out on site. Only one. And, quotes, there is evidence to suggest that principal treatment centres for childhood cancers should be co-located with neurosurgery. In other words, with respect to neurosurgery, the Evelina option is the most risky. The Evelina solution to this, to use King's, sort of defeats the purpose of uniting children's cancer services. Let's take now you on to oncology surgery. Another 15% of children with cancer will have a neuroblastoma, renal tumour, or germ cell tumour. And these children often require major surgery performed by a paediatric oncology surgeon to remove or reduce the tumour. This expertise is rare. There are around 20 such surgeons in the country, 3 of whom are at St George's. The Evelina does not have this expertise at all. They would need either to rely on surgeons from St George's going to work at the Evelina or build a new surgical team from scratch. And if St George's surgeons were to travel to the Evelina to operate on children with cancer, there would remain the question of the wider non-surgical expertise required to manage these children, including the specific anaesthetic skills. And it would be much more challenging to manage post-operative complications. In other words, for oncology surgery, as for neurosurgery, the Evelina option is the most risky. Let's now go on to bone marrow transplants. Another 42% of children with cancer will have leukemias, other blood cancers or lymphoma. For these children, bone marrow transplants and increasingly CAR treatment, where a patient's cells are modified to help fight cancer, are key treatments for any new primary treatment centre to be able to deliver. Now, these treatments are complex, high-risk, heavily regulated treatments and difficult to set up without experience. The process to do that probably takes years, not months. St George's has a bone marrow transplant programme for adults and is accredited to provide CART for adults, and so is well placed to extend that offer to children. The Evelina Partnership, including Guy's and St Thomas, does not currently have a bone marrow transplant programme and is not accredited to deliver CART. Developing such a programme there and delivering it with the required quality without the adult service will cost much, much more and be much, much more challenging. So, Christopher, I could go on with other specific examples related to specific cancer treatments for children, but let me end by focusing on some wider issues where, once again, it's clear the Evelina option is just more risky. Question: which of the hospitals has the most experience with paediatric cancer? As my honourable friend said, St George's has 25 years' experience caring for children with cancer. The Evelina does not have the experience of caring for children with cancer. Not anything like St George's. Ask about the staff. Where are the specialist cancer staff currently working, and what would they do if a change? Well, there are 432 staff at St George's that are involved in caring for children with cancer, and they're from a wide range of specialities and professions. The vast majority of these staff and the expertise they've built up in caring for children with cancer over the years will not move to the Evelina if the primary treatment centre is moved there. Why? Because most spend only a proportion of their time caring for children with cancer, and the majority of their time caring for children with other conditions. St George's estimates only 4 whole-time equivalents would likely to transfer under 2P regulations out of 432 staff. Therefore, not only would these skills be lost, they would need to be redeveloped in another group of staff. At a time when NHS is facing one of its most substantial staffing and skill shortages ever, is this really a risk NHS England wants to run? This type of basic medical risk analysis points clearly to St George's being the solution. But let's look at the financial risk too, Sir Christopher. NHS England itself has assessed the St George's proposal as involving lower capital costs, 13.5 million lower, representing better value for money, according to NHS England, and having a better revenue impact. By 2030-31, the St George option would be breaking even, whereas the Evelina option would be running a £2 million deficit a year. Even taking into account the charity funding envisaged for the Evelina option, it would cost the NHS £3.5 million more in capital funding than St George's option, and the charity funding could presumably be used elsewhere. And if it was moved to the Evelina, St George's would lose the income and not be able to lose the associated staff. The Trust estimates that it will leave a £2.5 million financial gap to close in the first year. Given NHS finances are under real strain, why take the capital and revenue risk by opting for the most expensive option? Now, Sir Christopher, I've listened to the other arguments, the counter-arguments put forward by the Evelina and some experts and NHS England. A big focus of these arguments rests on research for developing new treatments, looking into the future. Yes, let's look at that. Well, cellular treatments, such as CART, are likely to be central to the future treatment of children's cancer. St George's is accredited and commissioned to provide CART, whereas the Evelina is not. Research is at an early stage in using vaccines to treat cancer, yet St George's University of London, co-located with St George's, is an international leader in research in vaccines, infection studies and clinical trials, with a long-term potential for vaccine technology to be developed to support the treatment of cancer. Unlike the honourable gentleman from Carshalton and Wallington, he was right to point to the Institute of Cancer Research and Royal Marsden in the same proximity of St George's, again part of the research offer that only St George's can provide. So to conclude, Sir Christopher, I think this is a no-brainer. I am absolutely staggered that anyone has any doubt about which is the right option. I listened to the Honourable Gentleman member for Mole Valley, and I take him very seriously. He's a great professional in NHS, in dentistry. He offered my wife some treatment a while ago in a previous debate, and I was very grateful for that. And he's right, we're all looking in expectation to what happens in tomorrow's decision. But I have to tell him, having listened to the experts, having spent a lot of time looking at this issue, I just don't think there is any doubt. Yes, the Evelina is a fantastic children's hospital. My son goes there every week. But I have to tell you, it's not an expert in cancer services and in children's cancer services, which is the point of this decision. St George's can offer these specialities with the expertise. It can do it cheaper, in a more accessible way. To me, it's by far the less risky option. I'm grateful to the Prime Minister saying that I can meet the Secretary of State for Health on this, and I look forward to that. But I hope, with the arguments set forward today and elsewhere, NHS England will decide tomorrow for St George's.
I've let the Right Honourable Gentleman finish his speech, but there's now a division in the main chamber, and I'm told that there are going to be 2 divisions, and that means that the sitting is suspended for 25 minutes. Order on.
We'll get the decision will be made before we finish the debate.
Longest Westminster Hall
We're actually
debate.
voting on this one, guys?
Order, order. In the absence of the Minister, but with the consent of the lady who's about to speak, Sarah Olney.
Much. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, Sir Christopher. Thank you very much for giving me time to speak. I will not detain long. I'd like to congratulate my honourable friend and constituency neighbour for securing this important, extremely timely debate. As she's already highlighted, the Evelyn is an excellent facility. I commend the incredible work that their doctors do every day. However, I share her view that the weight of evidence shows that St George's Hospital would be a better home for paediatric cancer care in South London and the surrounding counties. And I'd just like to say at this point, I've had my own recent experience of excellent inpatient paediatric care. My daughter was in the Frederick Hewitt ward for a short period last year, can confirm that the paediatric care there is excellent. And I'd like to say to the member for Mole Valley, I had no problems in parking any time that I had to go and visit her. One of the less well-known but most dangerous side effects of cancer treatment is the extreme increase in susceptibility to bacterial and viral infections for patients. And whilst most children with cancer are able to overcome minor infections, the mortality rate from infection is 3 times higher in cancer patients than in the general public. Now, because of this risk, many children living with cancer cannot take public transport or even smaller private hire vehicles. In the most extreme cases, visitors and carers are expected to shield so that they do not bring a risk of infection. So travelling by car is the only option available to many of these young people and their families. As such, any plan to bring paediatric cancer treatment in South London and the surrounding counties under one roof must make sure that certain patients can access the hospital safely. And this was driven home for me when one of my constituents contacted my office after her daughter was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. During the 6 months that her daughter received chemo and radiotherapy at UCLH Hospital, they had to travel to the hospital in Euston from Richmond several times a week to receive treatment. Due to the very limited parking at the hospital, the need to avoid public transport because of the risk of infection, the family were forced to hire taxis to make the journey, and each round trip cost the family close to £100. And this is not a unique situation. On average, the families of children with cancer have to spend £250 and travel 350 miles each month to get their specialist treatment. 3 in 4 struggle to meet these costs, and 1 in 10 miss or delay their treatment because of the expense. St George's Hospital has 2 visitor car parks, and it has presented a plan to create a series of dedicated parking spaces and drop-off zones for the families of children with cancer.
And I put on record the Minister has profusely apologised that she was misled as to whether there was going to be a gap between the divisions, and there was a gap. We've exploited that gap as much as we can, but we've now got to suspend the sitting again for, I'm told, there are going to be 2 more divisions. That's for another 25 minutes, which means we'll start again at 27 minutes past 6. Order, order.
We're abstaining.
Order, order. Sarah Olney.
Thank you, Sir Christopher. I was on the verge of taking an intervention from the member of the
Very kind for taking the intervention. Would the Honourable Lady agree with me that she was talking about transport? And yes, the Evelina Hospital has amazing facilities. It has a Ronald McDonald House just opposite where people can stay, parents can stay. But the point is, in getting in by car, is it's easier to get to Tooting nonetheless, especially if you're coming from outside London. If you've got the patient transport coming from to the Evelina from Brighton, you spend more time actually getting into London from the outskirts than you do from Brighton to the outskirts of London in the first place.
I thank the member for Sutton and Sheen for his intervention. He's absolutely right, and I think it's absolutely.
Where is it?
Suggest that he gets a new A to Z and a decent machinery. It's not that more difficult.
I'm grateful to the member for Mole Valley for his intervention. I would have to say my personal experience is that it's a lot easier to get from anywhere in sort of the surrounding counties to the outskirts of London than it is to get from the outskirts of London to central London. As I was saying, the Evelina's parking facilities are, in the hospital's own words, very limited, with patients' advisors often a queue for parking, which of course can only add to the stress of those parents who are trying to get their children into hospital for urgent treatment. And given that the Evelina sits in central London, just over the river from here, I'm highly concerned about their ability to expand parking provision significantly. And the Evelina, of course, also sits within the congestion charge zone, meaning that any family member who wishes to visit an inpatient will be charged between £15 and £17.50 every time they come to the hospital. And while I acknowledge that TfL will reimburse the cost to patients with compromised immune systems, for families visiting on a regular basis or not covered by the exemption, this could become a significant expense. And of course, it also creates a significant additional administrative burden for those families. Admission to hospital can be a terrifying prospect for a young person. Parents often take shifts, keeping their child company during this unimaginably difficult time. If each day they drive to and from the ward, they could end up paying more than £100 a week in congestion charges alone. The NHS was founded on the principle that everybody should have easy access to life-saving medical treatment regardless of their economic circumstances. And I believe that St George's meets this criteria in a way that the Evelina simply cannot. Both are world-class hospitals, and I know that both teams provide an excellent standard of care, but St George's offers both parents and children a solution that truly meets their needs. Thank you, Sir Christopher.
But before calling Karen Smith, can I just say that this debate has to end by 6:54 on our new timetable, and that includes a maximum of 2 minutes for a response to the debate. Karen Smith.
Christopher, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, which has been severely tested this afternoon and run remarkably well, getting us all to the end of what is an important debate. And I commend the Honourable Member for Twickenham for securing this debate. It's a really important one, particularly for local people, around the issue of children's cancer. And the other contributors from Carshalton, Richmond Park, Mitcham and Morden, Mole Valley and Kingston, Surbiton, I think have spoken on behalf of their constituents with the diligence with which we would expect. Receiving a cancer diagnosis is always distressing and deeply worrying for anyone. For a child and their family, it can be particularly devastating. Watching your child go through that is a difficulty that, fortunately, most parents don't have to do. But for the very many that do, my thoughts are with those families that have been talked about today, those families that are going through it, and particularly those families who have lost a child to cancer. And also I pay tribute to the many families who are campaigning for good cancer care for young children and young people, because every year 4,000 children and young people are diagnosed with cancer in the UK, and sadly it is still the biggest killer by disease for children and young people in our country. And children and young people, as we've heard here this afternoon, with cancer have very different needs to adults and can face very real challenges in cancer care. It's crucial they get the right treatment and the right family support. And often that treatment does take place in dedicated specialist treatment centres far from home. Children can travel on average 350 miles to get their cancer treatment, and according to research by Young Lives, this cancer means that distressed and vulnerable children are travelling often across the country to receive care. And as we've heard this afternoon, the location of these centres are important for local people seeking the best care for their children. And in my own city of Bristol, we are home to a paediatric haematology and oncology programme, which serves the whole of the southwest region, sharing care centres from Gloucestershire to Cornwall to ensure that children receive care as close to home as possible. And what should that care look like? We know that children receive the best care with early diagnosis and access to treatment from well-supported and trained staff based on the latest research. But sadly, under this Conservative government, swathes of targets have not been met and children are left waiting for a diagnosis when every second is vital. This includes the faster diagnosis standard, with 3 in every 10 patients waiting longer than 28 days for a diagnosis or to have cancer ruled out. That's from 2022-23. And waiting lists have risen to a record high, with over 400,000 children awaiting consultant-led treatment. Prolonged waits not only impact children's health, but have a detrimental impact on their education, overall well-being. And though I welcome the Children and Young People Cancer Task Force announced last month, without a properly functioning wider health system, children with cancer will continue to be vulnerable to those missed targets and delay in care. And the root of this crisis is the failure to provide the NHS with the staff it needs to treat patients on time. And indeed, the Royal College of Radiologists, which represents specialist paediatric radiologists, has said that after years of underinvestment, the workforce is stretched, causing backlog and delay. And that's why we in Labour are committed to providing the staff, modern technology and reform crucially needed to bring down those waits to safe levels, to provide 2 million more appointments a year for planned surgery, diagnostics and outpatient care, and double the number of CT and MRI scanners, which will speed up children's diagnosis and access to treatment. We know, and we've heard it today, how important that care is, that people, and particularly their families, can be confident they will receive the right care in the right place. The guidelines produced by NHS England are very clear about the processes to be followed and the clinical case to be made for major service change. Indeed, this was much discussed in committee in the last Health and Social Care Bill, upon which I sat. So I do look forward to hearing today from the Minister, and I'm going to give her plenty of time, about assurances that she can give to local people to this decision and the members of Parliament who have spoken here today about both the process and the substance of the way in which decisions are made now in the NHS. Thank you, Sir Christopher.
Minister, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Sir Christopher, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship today on what's been quite a drawn-out debate on such a very important topic. And the Honourable Member for Twickenham has raised an incredibly important issue, and I hope that she and all Honourable Members accept that clinical assessment and knowledge are crucial to making vital decisions that affect children's health at such a very, very difficult time for them and their families. I'm responding to this debate on behalf of my right honourable friend, the member for Pendle, but I will endeavour to respond to each colleague and commit to writing where necessary. This debate has understandably stirred some strong emotions because every colleague has had direct or indirect exposure to some of the questions that this debate has raised. And I'm therefore grateful to all honourable members for their contributions to the debate. I think it demonstrates the huge importance to all of us of getting the right outcome. Each of us has helped a parent calling our constituency offices, seeking help at an incredibly difficult time. And I want to assure everyone that each person in the government, from the Prime Minister down, knows the importance of getting this right. That's why cancer services for children are an absolute priority. And from my own work in the Start for Life programme and in the few months I've been in my current role, I have seen a collective determination to ensure that children right across the country receive the highest possible standards of care. And children with cancer are the key priority. Now, Sir Christopher, the Royal Marsden Hospital and St George's currently care for most of the children with cancer in South London and the South East. And I do want to pay tribute to the work of those dedicated doctors and nurses who do absolutely everything they can to look after the children entrusted to their care. So first of all, I want to be clear that NHS England's proposed changes do not reflect upon the stellar service that those staff have given and continue to give. Rather, the proposals follow advice from Professor Sir Mike Richards' review, which has made it a clinical requirement for cancer services to be placed in the same location as an intensive care unit to give critical life support to the most unwell children. And Sir Mike's reasoning was simple. First, there is a need to end transfers between hospitals for very sick children, which add risks and stresses for them, not to mention their families, during what is already an unimaginably difficult time. Second, while we will not compromise on safety, we need to ensure the quality of care. As every member will agree, children deserve to benefit from the very latest technology available. And then third, we need to ensure a seamless joined-up approach. Now, NHS England has listened to patients, parents and clinical experts to hear how we might best improve their care. The NHS England process has been rigorous, and it has been immensely important for all those patients, parents and specialists to put forward their own significant insights. Last year, NHS England carried out a 12-week public consultation on 2 options for the future location of the Principal Treatment Centre for South London and much of the South East, Evelina London Children's Hospital and St George's Hospital. Under both options, all radiotherapy for children with cancer would be at University College Hospital. Both Evelina London and St George's deliver outstanding rated children's healthcare for children. They also provide outstanding rated education in their hospital schools. Both are capable of delivering a future principal treatment centre that meets our high standards. They are also both adept at listening to children, young people and their families to improve upon the care that they deliver. The experience and expertise of specialists working side by side with intensive care and surgical teams will make a real difference, enabling children to get care where they need it, when they need it, on the specialist cancer ward, bringing down the number of children admitted to intensive care, making it easier for different specialist teams treating the same child to work closely together, improving care for children, upskilling the workforce, and supporting new kinds of research. Importantly, this will also mean the future cancer centre will be capable of offering the most innovative and cutting-edge treatments, which may bring precious new hope for children and their families. The centre will build upon the strengths of the existing service, including high-quality care by expert staff and access to clinical trials. It will be a family-friendly centre for children and young people at the forefront of groundbreaking research and continuing the close relationship with the Institute of Cancer Research. Yes, I'll be happy to give way.
She said a moment ago that the new centre will build on the service and the experience. I mean, the point that I and many honourable members have made is that St George's has that experience. The Evelina, whilst brilliant in many paediatric specialisms, doesn't have the children's cancer experience. So what will they be building on? And if I may, on the point about process, as I pointed out, it was already predetermined, and they've made it very clear in meetings we've had that they aren't going to take into account a lot of the responses unless there's new evidence. So the views of children and their parents and clinicians are not being listened to through the consultation.
Well, I'm afraid I fundamentally disagree with the Honourable Lady on that point. The consultation has been open, with an open mind, and following the best principles of open consultation. And I think the Honourable Lady is taking quite a liberty to suggest that it was a foregone conclusion. And I do not think that she is correct in her belief. And I think it is essential that clinicians are able to take all of the inputs from those consultations to come to the right decision. I'll give way to my honourable friend, the member for Mole Valley.
Knowing quite a number of consultants at St George's, if they heard that they were on a standstill position and not moving forward and building on what they've got now, they would be insulted.
That's not what I said.
And I'll also take the intervention from my honourable friend.
Jonathan Law.
I thank the Minister. Like several colleagues, I would like to thank the existing hospitals for the amazing care that they've they've given over the years. But I agree with my honourable friend for Mole Valley. I don't think this decision is necessarily a no-brainer. You know, I think we need to look at the final decision and report and weigh up what's good, what's bad. Who knows what that final decision will be and the reasoning. But it's been a proper process, I agree with the Minister, and we should allow it to come to its conclusion very, very shortly and look at the evidence and look at the decision in that light and with an open mind.
I absolutely agree with both my honourable friends that the consultation is critical, that it has been an open consultation and that all views are being taken into account. And I'm grateful to them for supporting the process, which for us as members of Parliament and representatives of our constituency, we all want the best for our constituents. But in the case of clinical care, it is absolutely vital that those with specialist knowledge and understanding should be able to make such important decisions that will affect life and death outcomes for children. So, Sir Christopher, the new centre will be a family-friendly centre for children and young people at the forefront of groundbreaking research and continuing a close relationship with the Institute for Cancer Research. The centre will lead joined-up working between different children's cancer services so that children get proper access to care wherever they live. And importantly, it will have many more services on-site, reducing the need for some families to travel, which will be particularly helpful for children with complex needs and families who struggle to speak English. Now, I want to assure colleagues and anyone who might be watching at home, once the decision has been taken, there will be no sudden changes to how patients receive care. Of course, some families will naturally be worried about what the change might mean for their children. This is entirely normal, and NHS England will carefully involve every clinical team currently providing care, keeping parents and families closely updated at every stage. NHS England will encourage experienced staff to move to the Future Centre so they can continue to provide a friendly and familiar face to the children they serve. No one from amongst the clinical staff will be made redundant in any future changes resulting directly from this decision. NHS England has met with staff to listen to their views, and they assure me that this will continue. So, Sir Christopher, the consultation heard from children, their carers and families who have received the worst news, and they have talked about their own experiences selflessly to try and help others. So the consultation closed in December last year, and an independent research organisation published their findings in January. NHS England has taken into account every word of feedback and every inch of evidence to inform the decision-making process. NHS England leaders are meeting tomorrow to decide the future location of the centre, and the meeting will be live-streamed so that everyone who is interested can hear the discussion and the decision. So in conclusion, Sir Christopher, wherever the Future Centre is placed, I'm confident tomorrow's decision will offer the right outcome for our children, taking all views into account. Throughout this process, no, the Honourable Lady will have her chance in a moment. Throughout this process, the guiding principle has always been safety, quality of care, and the best outcomes for children with cancer, now and for the long term, because the children and their families deserve nothing less. Thank you.
Munira Wilson.
Thank you, Sir Christopher. I'm sorry the Minister wouldn't give way again because I did want to ask her a direct question, but I don't believe she's got the opportunity now to come back to me. But can I just start by thanking all the Honourable and Right Honourable members who participated in this debate, albeit a rather drawn-out one. I wanted to particularly thank my Right Honourable friend, the member for Kingston and Surbiton, because I thought the clinical case that he made was forensic. I mean, it went into such great detail to make the compelling case as to why this service should be placed at St George's, where it does already exist and it's being built upon. I didn't quite understand the member from Mole Valley's intervention on me to suggest that I was insulting clinicians. I was merely explaining it's already there and it's being built on. And both he and the member for Carshalton Wallington, who's not in his place anymore, also laid out the huge research opportunity we have the Minister talked about innovative therapies. My honourable friend, the member for Kingston-Surbiton, talked about CAR-T and all the other innovative therapies that they're already working on at St George's. He also highlighted staffing concerns, and both he and the honourable member for Mitcham and Morden talked about the cost implications, actually, of moving the service. I thank the honourable member for Richmond Park and the member for Sutton and Cheam for highlighting the travel issues, which I strongly agree with and have come through very, very clearly. No one, and I want to repeat again because I think there's been a suggestion from some members that we are knocking the Evelina. Everybody agrees that it is an outstanding children's hospital. The point is that St George's also has outstanding paediatric services recognised by the CQC as outstanding and by the Royal College of Paediatric Surgeons also recognised as having some amazing specialities. So I would just urge the Minister again, because there is deep concern, and it's not just from members of Parliament, it's not just from politicians, it is also from professional groups, and also I mentioned health watch groups, local health watch groups in my opening remarks, that this consultation hasn't been transparent and fair, and the process hasn't been fair. So I ask her again if she will urge the Secretary of State for Health that if the decision is tomorrow by NHS England for the service to go to the Evelina, that it will be called in and looked at once again by ministers, so that all of the very compelling arguments we've heard today on the clinical case, on the risk, most importantly, to children's cancer care and other services are taken into account in particular. Children's voices, their parents, the clinical voices and patient group voices must be heard, and I don't believe that they are being heard at the moment. Thank you.
The question is that this House has considered children's cancer care in the South East. As many have been say aye. Aye. Contrary no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order, order. The sitting is adjourned.
The proceeding has ended. The proceeding has ended. The proceeding has ended. The proceeding has ended.